All right, I am providing a long-term review of the 2.5-ton Harbor Freight aluminum jack under the Pittsburgh Automotive. Seen some other reviews out there, like new unboxing reviews and even some like 1-year reviews and stuff. This is going to be a 10-year review. So I've owned this thing for about 9.5 years. It's getting close to 10 years. I was figuring out what year I got it, and I've had this thing for a long time. It has absolutely been a trooper. So I'm going to share everything with it. It is, just to prove, just so everybody can see, I know the label on top is worn off, but it is the Pittsburgh, if I could speak, automotive jack there. It is 2.5 ton. Obviously the sticker is well gone. It had the dual piston on the back. When I originally got this jack, I had got it because I was just working on a lot of my own stuff. And I opted for the aluminum because it's light and I knew it would be going in and out of the bed of a truck a lot. So I liked the idea of not having a really heavy jack. So I got this, and then I got, along with it, 4 of the original gray Pittsburgh Automotive 3-ton jack stands. Recently they came out with a recall with those like a year or so ago, maybe 2 years ago, not real sure when. But I recently had went into the store and they were doing an exchange, and they gave you $30 per set in-store credit. Well, the new Daytona 3-ton jack stands that they had out were on sale for member, like ITC member, Inside Track Club member, for $29.99 when I went in there. So they don't exchange them for the new jack stands, but it just so happened that the $29.99 in-store credit they gave me per set, I was able just to get 2 sets of the brand new jack stands. By the way, I never had an issue with the old jack stands. I will say that the top portion, sometimes, especially when it was fully extended, was definitely, they felt a little unstable, but I never had a vehicle fall. I've never had anything like that. But if you had them extended pretty close to the top or all the way, you could actually rock the vehicle, and it just felt unstable. I will say I've only owned these about 2-3 weeks now and used them 4 or 5 times, so I can't give a real honest review longevity, but I will say those jack stands feel a world more stable, and I actually feel better under vehicles with them. So that being said, I like them already. Anyway, but this isn't about the jack stands, this is about the jack. So this thing, how it's held up. As you can see, the rubber pad's gone. This rubber pad is gone. That, I think, only lasted a couple years, and you can kind of tell that I've used the snot out of this thing. The aluminum's all marred up, but no cracking, no breaking. You can see this hole here. I actually drilled that hole because I made my own tranny pan jack, or transmission jack. I built one out of 2x4s and to fit a specific transmission for a specific job I was doing. That was like 5 years ago. And I drilled a hole there so I could bolt it to the plate of that. So it worked. I don't know if I would recommend anybody else doing it, but it did work. So I've kind of made this thing work. I'll tell you the things I like about it. One I like about it is going on 10 years, and it's still going strong. I am actually about to go get one of their new Daytona steel floor jacks because they have a coupon, and this one is starting to get a little slower. So the seals around the pistons, as you can see, I guess it's not the best angle. Let's see. They're kind of got some gunk built up on them. Nothing crazy. But I've noticed that they very slowly leak fluid. In the 10 years, I have had to add fluid to this one time. And the time that I added fluid was, I think, partially due to my fault. I did some mobile mechanicking for about 2 years, and this rode around underneath the toolbox in the bed of my truck. And this thing just got hammered from road vibration and bouncing around. And I believe that had a lot to do with a lot of the fluid leaking out, because one day I got out and went to jack up a Chevy Impala, and it wouldn't even lift the vehicle. So that's when I added fluid, went through the bleed procedure. You can look up other videos that are a lot better. One of these screws, I don't remember which one, you add fluid, you open one, and then you bleed it. But all the seals have seemed like, ever since I've done that, that was about 3 years ago, and everything seems like it's held. That seal, you can tell there's some gunk around it, so it's got a slow leak there on the main piston, or whatever you want to call that. I guess it might not be the piston, the hydraulic piston. But yeah, there was no grease zerks on this jack, like some of their newer steel jacks are coming out, so the only maintenance I ever did was add fluid when it needed. And oh, after riding around in the bed of my truck for several years, something that I'll say, which is more or less my fault, because I don't know if they intended for this jack to ride around in the bed of a truck, but a lot of these bolts were getting loose. You'd see them backing out just from vibration. So I did go through and retorque everything once every couple months when I was doing that, and I recently retorqued them again, and I found a few loose ones. So really my complaints are really due to this thing having some age on it, and then riding around in the bed of a truck for almost 2 years and getting used all the time. So I don't really have a lot of other complaints. It always works. I will say the aluminum jack, there are some times that if I've got it under a vehicle with the load on it, and there's a kind of like, it's not really centered under the weight, it's just where I can get the jack. If the weight isn't perfectly centered on it, I have seen this jack, the frame of the jack actually twist a little bit. Not a whole bunch, never enough to scare me, but I have seen it pull a back wheel off before and kind of three-wheel a little bit. But that's rare. That's not all the time. That's only if I have the jack, like, per se on the side of a vehicle, and then I'm jacking up to a point that it actually starts lifting the other wheel, and then it puts that weight on it. But I feel like their steel floor jacks, or the steel wouldn't twist as much as the aluminum. I've still never had it fail. I definitely don't ever work on the vehicle without jack stands, especially like that. So far it's working great. Let's see, I'm just going to do a whole review on the thing. The little rubber pad they give you, I've never replaced or anything. It's got a few good nicks out of it after about 9.5 years. But even if that disappeared, I wouldn't be sad. It's worked pretty good. I've used this handle more than one time as a over the end of a long breaker bar and as a cheater pipe. So never bent it or broke it. Definitely used it. Handle still comes out fine. The end of it's not worn down. See if that'll focus there. Anyway, everything in here looks good. Nothing's broke on it. As you can see, it still jacks up. I can't prove it unless I had another new one right next to it, but I think that it jacks up a little slower now than it used to. Like, I don't get quite as much lift out of one stroke. I could be wrong. It was really bad when it was getting low on fluid, obviously, but after I put some in it, it regained. But it still goes up all the way. And then the release, what I always really liked about this jack, I always hated some of the old school floor jacks that when you just see them to release them, they just dropped all at once. You couldn't really control how slow the vehicle dropped. So you can see this is real easy to control. So after 10 years, it still drops nice and slow, which I appreciated a lot. Anyway, the front wheels are doing good. Let's see. I've had this thing on asphalt, gravel, just about everything. Wheels are good. I've retorqued those multiple times. That's just one thing. If you're using this in the bed of a truck, or even just a good thing to do all the time, is just retorque everything. I honestly don't remember if that play was there when this was brand new. It probably was, because I don't think these are like super precise. But there's a little play in that. But I promise you, they're not coming off. That main shaft or bolt, whatever you want to call it, is still in the center. The washer's still there, and that's torqued. So still working great. I want to show you a modification I did to this jack. I guess before I get there, I'll keep looking at this. Overall, the frame of it still looks good. Let's look at the bottom. Show you kind of what happens to this thing. So you can see that I just pull this over rocks and everything. There's some scrapes and stuff. But the springs, after 10 years, even yanking them over rocks and jacking stuff up, they've never broke, never had one break or anything like that. These pistons still look pretty good. No huge leaks. But the bottom of this thing is held up. No cracks at all through it. The back wheels still turn freely. Everything works good here. No complaints. But I'll show you the modification I did. If you notice, you might be thinking, oh, that's one of the little like 1.5 tons in the video because the sticker's not there. And if you notice in store, the 2.5 tons have these handles off the side. I took those handles off, and I'll tell you why. Here, I'll show you. I still got them. Let's see. Still got the handles. These are really handy, especially if you're loading this thing in and out of a truck all the time. I do like the handles. However, I stopped using the handles for one reason right here. I'm going to use this. This particular scenario doesn't really apply right now, but I'm gonna use, well, maybe it does. I'm gonna use this to show. So I was jacking up this Cadillac CTS on the rear diff, and the best jacking location for the particular job I was doing, there's several or jack stand locations you could put it, but for the job and the access point I needed, that's where I was. And I found a lot that those handles stuck out so much out to the sides that I was not able, more than one time over the last 10 years, I was not able to get a jack stand. If the weight of the vehicle was on the jack and I needed that jack stand right there, a lot of times those handles got in the way and it prevented me from getting the jack stand as close to the jack as I wanted. Happened a lot if I had the jacking up on a pinch weld or something, and the strongest point of the pinch weld is obviously you have your jacking point. Typically your jacking point is one of the strongest places to jack, but then you also want to put, usually in that same area on the pinch weld, there's a lot of pinch welds that are like doubled up and there's kind of indicated that's where you want to jack. I try to put my jack on part of it, but also try to get the jack stand on the same area to put the weight of the vehicle on so I can sit it down on the jack stand. So sometimes that requires putting a jack stand right next to this. So what I found, maybe this will help some of you guys, is that when those were on there, it prevented me from getting a jack stand right next to it. So I just took them off. They're not structural or anything, they're just there to be handy, and that helped me so much. You do lose the handle for ease of picking it up, but to be honest, I picked this thing up with how light it is by my hand up here and then my right hand back here. And I just pick it up both hands and put it in the truck and it's got no problem. So anyway, that's my 10-year review. I guess almost 10-year review. Been really happy with it. So hopefully if you're contemplating buying one of their aluminum jacks, I'd say it's definitely worth the money. I think when I got this, it was like on sale for $150 or $60. That's 10 years ago. I know inflation has changed things, and now they might be a little more. I haven't priced these out. I've only priced out the new Daytona steel jacks because I'm going to get a steel floor jack next, and then just have this one around. And if I end up having to do a mobile run, I don't do a lot of those anymore, but if I do have to do something, this will be the one I grab to throw in the vehicle because it's a lot lighter. But yeah, so I'm pretty happy with it. One thing that I didn't do in this review, or I can't tell you, is I know some guys, a good way to test these is to jack up some weight and let it sit for like a week or a couple days and see if it sinks down, if it holds the weight or if it bleeds off some pressure. I have not done that test, so I'm not sure. I know for a while, there's a couple jobs a couple years ago that I had it sitting under there for a while, and for 2 or 3 days before I touched it, I came back and I remember it did sink several inches. And I know that because I couldn't get the tire back on the vehicle, and when I had jacked the vehicle up, there was enough room to get the tire off. So I had to jack it back up to get the tire on. So it probably does sink. But as far as just jacking the vehicle up and holding it for several hours, I haven't noticed anything during just the normal use. So anyway, been a good jack. I don't want to carry this on too long. We're already going on about 15 minutes. So if you're looking at the Pittsburgh Automotive 2.5 ton, I can't speak for the other ones. I'm sure they're just as good. After 10 years, this jack has still been a really good investment. All right. Thank you. I'm out.